Good morning, ma'am.
Good morning. Good morning, class. Good morning. How's everybody doing today? Are we well? Good? Happy? Happy. Anybody not feeling so great today? Feeling a little so-so? Okay. Alright. Did you all get enough sleep last night? Did you sleep well? Match? The cricket match? Okay. Yeah, could you just check the others apart from Shubham, are you able to hear me clearly online? Could
A
somebody
little bit
unmute?
of disturbance, ma'am.
There's a little bit of disturbance. Okay, just 1 second.
It's breaking also.
Are you able to hear me better? Is it clear? Okay, 1 second. Am I clearer now? No? Go- Hello, are you able to hear me now? Am I clear? Students, if the ones online, can you clarify? Are you able to hear me? Thank you. All right, cool. Thank you. Right. So today I would be giving you a few important details with regards to your assignment and how it's going to be. I might also be posting a few materials on the Google Classroom to help you answer the assignments, but I will come to that a little later. So I know that today we're reaching technically the end. We just have like a page and a half left, and then we would be done. But I would really like today, at least for the first half of the class, for you to ask me questions because by now I've expected that you would have read something somewhere, and if you have any doubts, because I'll be using the entire second half to run through drills. Okay, because it's equally important for you to be able to practice them well, and I would be giving you a few guidelines today just so that you would be able to do it better and bring that into practice. I would also be participating with you. I would do some of the drills with you. I will be shuffling as a counselee every now and then so that you can also see how that works. Um, but before we begin for today, does anybody want to share something good that has happened during the past weekend, something that was fun? India won the match. Oh yeah, I heard a lot of firecrackers yesterday. Didn't watch the match. I think that's great. How many did any of the students online watch the match yesterday, the cricket match? No? Okay. Nobody online has watched that.
Yes, ma'am, I have watched it.
Or all right, all right. Apart from the cricket match, anything else that was interesting? Oh, all right. There was a birthday celebration. Great. And I think India won. Must have been a celebration. Okay. Anything else? Did anybody eat some interesting food? Yes, Prem?
Yes,
Pardon?
I had some interesting food, Himalayan food.
I
Hello?
I can't make what you're
Hello,
saying.
hello, 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 hello.
Yeah, I can hear you, but the audio is a little muffled. I'm not
Okay,
able
okay.
to
So
hear you.
I had this Himalayan food. I went to a event and they were serving this good dishes there.
Oh, I see. Okay, all right. Did anybody spend time with their friends during the weekend?
Yes, ma'am, I spent time.
Okay, all right. And Prakash was busy with his church committee elections. Oh, I hope that went well. Church elections are pretty important also. Okay, anybody, any interesting news? Everybody looks happy today, at least the ones online. You all look brighter. Must have been the game yesterday. But anything else somebody else would like to share? Just to start. Okay. Okay. So there was a horror movie also that was watched, and update on the church election, sweeping majority. Oh, great. That unanimous thing is always nice. Okay. So shall we start with today's lessons and then we'll finish this off. Then I'll give you your updates on your assignments and then we'll go to drills. Okay. All right. Let me just share my screen quickly. All right. Are you able to see the screen? It's visible. Okay. All right. So we've come to the end of the subject of Christian counseling, and the last thing that we'll be looking at is boundaries and ethics in professional counseling, especially with regards to you as a counselor who would be practicing, right? So, just a simple definition of what a boundary is, it's something that indicates the end or the line of something, right? So, where else do you see boundaries in your day to day life? Friendships, relationships,
Work area,
pardon?
work area, where we work.
Work areas, okay. Where else do you see boundaries every day? Outside, yes. You have the walls, you have the gates, you have the building, right? And in ministry also, yes. But physical boundaries are so many, right? The rivers are our boundaries, the mountain ranges are our boundaries, oceans, deserts. And I think if you look at India, it's very natural boundaries, right? Mountains in the north, the oceans in the south, and then the deserts in the west. Yes, right. The deserts are in the west. So we see that what do boundaries do? Boundaries put a limit, right, to so many different things that prevents things from moving across borders, right? But when you look at a building and an infrastructure, what is also there in the boundaries? What do you see in this wall? Windows. Windows and doors, right? Which means there might be times when your boundaries might give some space in between, and that is also something that we would be discussing, right? Because sometimes boundaries may bend, right? Boundaries may have some open spaces. For example, when you look at like any international borders, right, there'll be very solid to have like an army line or a defense system there, but there's always some space for movement and and like an intermediate space, like where you can just move in and out, right? So it's important for us to also know how much we can push and how much we need to hold back, and some things a proper yes, some things would be a proper no, right? So when you're looking at a professional boundary, it looks at a framework that would keep your professional relationship safe when you're talking to other people, right? And especially in an area like counseling, it's very important that you maintain your professional space very well, because we're dealing with people all the time, right? And normally with people, especially when they come to you feeling very vulnerable, sharing a lot of things, they will have that space where they may feel that they can talk to you any point of time, right? But you also need your sleep, right? Suppose if they're going through something at 11 p.m. and you're fast asleep and they call you, it's going to disrupt your sleep, right? Sometimes on the days that you've taken off and it's your holiday and they come in and they talk to you, sometimes you will also need your space, right? So learning how to do that becomes very important, especially here, right? So why do you think we need boundaries? Specifically as a counselor, now think of yourself as a counselor, why would you need boundaries? Can you just speak into? Okay.
I think there are certain things in our lives that we won't want to happen again. So we keep boundaries ourselves that we won't do this thing so that this certain situation won't happen again.
Yeah, yeah, that's really important. Who has raised? Yes, Prem.
Ma'am, if I'm a counselor and why boundaries are important for me, it's because like in many people in a month can share a lot of things with me, a lot of personal stuff with me. So I have to keep it to myself. Okay, this person is sharing, so I have to keep my emotions aside. I have to keep my relationship things aside when I'm talking to this guy, and I have to be very open minded. So I will not, as a human, we get attached very easily. So I have to keep that thing aside. So I will not get attached to any person, any human being. So that's why for a counselor, it is very important to keep boundaries because they listen to people's personal stuff, their emotions, and a lot of things. So that's what I think.
Right. Okay. Did anybody want to answer from class?
Sometime what happen is like boundary help us
I
to.
can't hear you.
Sometimes what happen is like boundary help us to keep our relationship healthy and pure.
To keep a healthy relationship, right? Like all the three of you have said, all of your points are really important, right? To safeguard the relationship. I think that was one of the key thing that came out from all the three of you who've answered. And also to safeguard, like Prem said, your own things that you're going through, especially when you're talking to people, right? And before running through the boundary lists that are there in your book, this is something that is not mentioned in your book, but this is something that's really important. It's called as transference and counter transference in counseling relationships, right? So in transference, basically it means that um, the person who's coming to you as a counselee is seeing you as somebody else, and they might be relating to you in a different way. For example, if the relationship between you and your client has become, especially if like you're the older counselor and the counselee is little small, if they start relating to it more as a mother daughter, father son, mother son, father daughter relationship, they may start treating you as a mother, or they may start treating you as a father, right? Which changes the dynamics of the relationship altogether, right? Why? Because usually when they open up, they'll start trusting you and they may start seeing you as the person, right? What if when they look at you, maybe you might resemble somebody whom they don't like, and their feelings might reflect through how they're looking at you. Maybe you resemble like a teacher that they didn't like back in school. They might just be showing those feelings to you instead, right? So normally in sessions there might be a time when the clients might transfer feelings to you, right? And sometimes if you're not careful, it might also turn into a relationship thingy where they like, they might have feelings for you, right? But then as a counselor, it's important for you to make sure that these, but as a counselor, when this may happen, it's called a counter transference, where then you see this person as, okay, I need to take care of them. they're like my child, or I need to protect them from the world. Now the relationship dynamics has changed completely. So this entire process, when there is an intermix of feelings and things have changed, is called transference and countertransference. It's not there in your books, you'll not find it in your notes. Okay, so remember, for the ones who haven't made a note, I mean, just keep it in your mind locked somewhere, otherwise you'll actually forget because it's not there, right? So let's look at a few things that we need to understand why we need to have boundaries, right? So for us to have very clear expectations in the counseling relationship, right? So normally when clients come for a relationship, there's usually an informed consent form that they'll normally have to sign, right? And in that form, very clear boundaries are written. Specifically, when you're looking at cases when people might hurt themselves or they might harm themselves, right? So in those cases, it's important that whether they like it or not, you're immediately informing their informant. When you have deemed a space or the situation that the client is in as dangerous, like, okay, they might hurt themselves anytime, you supersede asking them first, like, okay, I will talk to your mom or I will talk to your dad or your friend, but you inform them immediately and directly, right? So that's one. Another thing that could be a very simple boundary is how much time they have with you, right? For some clients, maybe they might opt for a 60-minute session, some might opt for a 90-minute session. So something as small as time is also a boundary, because like how Prem was mentioning earlier, you might be meeting some 6-7 people in a day, right? And you'll have your time slots, right? Like this person come at 1, this person 2:30, the next person 4. So you'll also need buffer times in the middle, right? You can't just keep meeting one person after the other, because you will then need to decompress and give yourself time and space before you move on, right? So that's another one. Time is also a boundary. So if you set like, okay, 1 hour, 1 hour, right? It doesn't go beyond that. Maybe sometimes you may give them a buffer time of 10 to 15 minutes, but like it's a hard close for 60 minutes, right? Sometimes the professional setting may also be a boundary, right? For maybe for some clients, it's like an in-person session. Some may want it online. Some may prefer telephonic, because then that's their boundary. They would just prefer over a call, right? But I do know of some counselors who meet at cafes, but that's also now their own boundaries, right? How would they prefer? So all of these tiny, tiny little things is also important. Another thing is also clothing, right? Of how you would dress up in a counseling session. It's still a professional setup, right? And we do know that across cultures, it may look different. So usually the safest thing to wear is something that would be like acceptable. You can't expect to be inside a counseling session dressed up like you're going for a party. As simple as that, right? It's still work. What else can you think of? Like before we run through this, what else do you think could be simple boundaries like this that we need to keep in mind? What else could you think of? How do we address them in this sense? Oh, so the language that you're going to use. Right. So the language that we use also becomes very important. I'll just repeat it to the ones online. So your language is important. Why? Because it's still a professional setting. You can't talk to them as you're talking to a friend. It can't be that casual, right? That's an important one. Anything else? Okay, so let's just run through and then we'll see in detail. And please ask me questions on ethics, because this is something that tends to be very blurry sometimes, right? For some people, it might be very clear. Like for some points, it will be clear, but somewhere, somehow, when you're practicing, these becomes very blurry. All right. So in case if you have any questions as we're running through ethics, please ask me. All right. Okay. So the first one is having the ability to recognize boundary issues as they arise, right? To give you an example for this, for example, a case comes in that is not beyond your that is not within your sphere of counseling, right? For example, somebody comes in with marriage issues, and that's not your space that you're dealing with, right? So that becomes your personal boundary. So what happens? Refer the client to somebody else. This, it's completely okay to not take it up because it's not within your counseling space, because then it'll start affecting the client, right? So that's one example of that. Another boundary issue could be, maybe you're dealing with females only, right? Or you're dealing with males, right? That also becomes a boundary. Maybe somebody by the name of Alex, no idea, a girl or a boy, and then you come in, it's not the gender that you're working with, right? So that could also be a boundary issue for you, right? So bring them up as they come up. It's completely okay, right? The next one is ethical expectations. So when we're looking at ethical expectations, a few things that comes to us as counselors for ethics. One is we will always have case discussions, right? And case discussions normally happen with your peers, with your supervisors, and people who guide you here. But it's very limited to just 3 to 4 people, right? So make sure that you don't go sharing their stories to somebody else, making it a story, right? It can't be gossip, it can't be stories, it can't be something that you're just sharing for the light of it, right? It's usually done from a very informed place, like when you're sharing, like it's used as case examples and things like that, nothing to be taken so lightly. The next one is having a plan of action is if boundaries are in danger of becoming unprofessional and unsafe. So if you notice that something is dangerously going to cross the boundary at which you're at, right? For example, if maybe you were not supposed to, but like you've shared where you stay with somebody, and now this somebody who might be extremely reckless then finds out where you're staying, and there's a high chance that this person might come to your house. Shouldn't work like that, but something is going wrong, right? So what are you going to do next, right? If certain things like this happen, to just keep in mind, because we may not know who are the people that we meet with, and especially today also with social media, that's also one very good boundary line to maintain. Make sure that your counselees are not following you on social media. Can you tell me why social media is also a good boundary to have? Go for something as minor as even your profile picture. Why does sometimes even that becomes an ethical issue sometimes? Suppose you have saved the number of your doctor, and then the picture that they have is of them like partying in a club. That's their DP. But then they're your doctor. What is the first thing that will come to your mind? I can take the expressions from your face, but like there's students online who will not see what I'm seeing. So speak your expressions through the mic. What do you think if you see your doctor's profile picture, but it's like them at a party in a club?
I feel I like in my case, if I am the person, I will not feel anything. I'll feel like okay, it's his personal life, whatever he do, he's enjoying and happy. I'll be fine.
Okay. So we have one insight from Prem, which he says that it'll not really matter to him because it's his personal life and the doctor is free to choose what they want to do. Okay. Anybody else? Any insights? A bad impression? Okay. Any other things that might just come through your mind? Say.
Actually, brother Rajesh, what saying is like, I'll make her to understand this is not good.
I can't hear you.
Sorry. Actually, brother Rajesh was saying that I'll make her to understand this is not good.
Okay. So he said he'll tell the doctor that it's not good. Are you going to tell the doctor that it's not good to have that picture as a profile? Or?
Sorry, we understand. Like we misunderstand the question.
You'll
Sorry.
misunderstand. Misunderstanding is a good word to use. Any more insights from this bench? No. So so it's going to be a mixed reaction, like Prem said, like, he may not mind, but the vast majority would be like, no, right? Like one of our students online have said, a bad impression, right? So something as small as that could change your mindset. Why? Because we will naturally have biases. It's there, right? In our minds, we can't really help it. So now imagine your personal life, especially social media, it's so free, right? Like they can see what you like. Sometimes if you have the same posts, they might understand so many other different things, which is not necessary for your client to know. There are certain things that they absolutely need not know. They need not know how many siblings you have. They don't have to know which school you studied in. They don't need to know where you went out with your friends last Saturday. It's not important. It's not necessary at all, because when you're in a counseling setting, your main goal is their well-being. That's it, right? Of course, sometimes when you're talking to them, you might share and they may ask you, like, do you also have siblings? Is it something that you can relate to? Like, yeah, a few things like that is pretty natural for them to know, right? But certain things, maintain that professional boundary, right? And on social media, the best thing is, normally most of us have two numbers, like one for your personal thing where you can post absolutely whatever you want, and one where, like, it's just a professional space where they see you in a professional setting, and you have professional messages and things like that over there, right? Where some people may just opt to have emails as a form of communication. It's faster. Some people, even if they message on any social media platform, mostly WhatsApp, I don't think you message your clients on Instagram. So, you know, even on WhatsApp becomes extremely professional. No unnecessary emojis, no animals, smiling emojis, clothes, cars, nothing, right? It's strictly professional, right? Now, the next one, the duty of the counselor to act in the best interest of the counselee, right? And I think this is something that has been discussed before. It has nothing to do with what you think, what should they do with their lives, right? At the end of the day, their well-being always comes first, right? So if you know that something that you do might make them uncomfortable, for example, in the room, right? Just don't do it, right? For maybe, what could be an example? If you like having flowers in your room, for example, and the client comes in, has like a flower allergy, pollen, right? It's okay to just get it out of your room. That's okay. Something simple. Small things also matter. Now this one is important. The counselor is ultimately responsible for managing boundary issues, right? You are the one who's supposed to put boundary lines in place, right? You cannot expect your counselee to put all of these things in place. Like, yeah, they might know that, okay, this is what they can do, this is what they cannot do. Maybe they can message you till 8 p.m. in the night, right? But what happens if they message after that? It's up to you then whether you choose to reply or not. If you're choosing to reply, it's crossing a boundary line for you, which means next time they may also do it again, right? But of course, there would be times of an emergency where they'll be like, okay, something has happened, where you may also like see, okay, it's important for me to respond at this point of time. But then the sole person who's responsible for maintaining boundary lines is you, right? Any questions about this? Okay. Now the next one is, a clear understanding of ethics and boundaries is important. Many boundary issues are not clear cut or clearly defined, right? So these are close things that we need to pay attention to, and we're going to look down now as we go. The first thing is self-disclosure, right? Do you understand what self-disclosure means? Self-disclosure means to reveal things about yourself to the other person, right? But then in a counseling setting, self-disclosure is something that can be a very helpful tool, at the same time something that cannot be used so freely, right? So for example, when your client is going through something, and it's something that you know that if you share your story, it's something that will help them, right? Now that is something that you can do. But if you're showing it from a point of like pride, or telling them, hey, see, I have done this before, or you're trying to show off, It's not going to work, right? So make sure that what you reveal about yourself is only in the sole interest to help that person get to where they're supposed to be. Nothing else beyond that, right? The next one is giving or receiving significant gifts. Now, what do you think about this? Giving or receiving significant gifts. What would fall under the category of significant gifts? What do you think? A chocolate and a flower is also significant. Okay. All right. It depends on what aspect. All right. Please remember that. We'll actually pick that up for discussion because that's important. A sort of bribing. Okay. All right. Interesting. More, what do you think could be a significant gift? Because these are actually important. They will happen, right? It's best to clear them out here. What else do you think could be something that is a significant gift? And there's no right or wrong answer because, again, it becomes your own personal boundaries. And for everybody, it'll be different, right? And we'll discuss that. So, what else could be a significant gift? I have so many things in my mind. Somebody giving me a watch as a thank you, right? Somebody, they'll come and they'll give you, thank you so much for helping me. Can I just get you a car? What if somebody says that? Or what do you think with somebody just comes and gives you a sticker like, thank you for helping me. I just found this and it reminded me of you. What would you do? Right? So there's so many things to be kept in mind. Right? Context of things is also really important. Right? If a child comes and gives you a chocolate, that's fine, right? Like maybe they're coming, they're happy, like, oh, you know, ma'am, today, ma'am or sir, like today in school, it was my friend's birthday. She gave us 2 chocolates. I want to give you one. A child coming and giving that to you is fine. What if, as a female, you're counseling a male and they come and give you a chocolate? Doesn't sit right. But another female giving you a chocolate, she was like, I tried baking a set of, or I tried cooking a batch of chocolates. I just wanted you to have one and try. Now that context is okay. But a male then giving it to a female, it's a little not okay. For example, if you're a male counseling a female, and maybe they've been working on a project that has taken a long time for them to work on, maybe even they're trying to like batch cook food, right? And they come specifically just to give one for you. Might not really fall in context. But if it's somebody who's, again, maybe a younger child, like a toddler or a kid, very different, right? Now, how would you tackle that situation if somebody comes and gives you something and you know that you can't receive it? Or somebody is bribing you, like a thing that came out is bribing. Prakash has said that. What if they give you something to tell you, see, listen, I'm giving you this watch as a gift, and then they like, and can you also just like tell so and so to not do this anymore for me? What would you do? That's the scenario I'm giving you. What would be your answers? We'll actually use that. Suppose you come to me and you're telling me like you have issues with your parents and they're making you study engineering, let's say. And then they come nicely one day like, hi, oh, I saw this watch. I wanted to give it to you as a gift. And after a while, they're like, and also, can you just tell my parents not to send me to that college because it's not going to be good for me? What would you do? What would be your response? It might happen. Might actually happen. It's real. So what would you say? You'll say no? Okay. Is there anything else that you would say as a follow-up to that? That is the right answer, but like frame it well. Just speak into the microphone.
Just explain them why they are not receiving it, sir.
Why you are not receiving the gifts? Okay. And how would you say that? If I am the counselee and I've said the exact lines to you and you're my counselor, what would you tell me?
So I think I can say that I have some boundaries which I shouldn't.
No, speak to me. I've given you the watch. I've told you, call up my parents, tell them I don't want to go to the college. What would you tell me?
I think I already have a watch.
Okay, might work. Who knows? I'll come back to you, Prem. I'll just finish the answers here.
So I'll just say like, I'm sorry I can't receive this, and I don't want you to spend money because you are still studying, something like that.
Okay.
And yeah,
Okay, that's also a nice one. One went for humor and one went for like a more practical thing, which I think both may work, right? Yes, Prem, you were going to say something?
I'll tell him to this will cost more than a watch. Just kidding. So I'll just tell him that tell that person don't give me the watch. I don't need it. Because that thing will like destroy the boundary. And if you'll receive anything from your client, every client may expect something, or every person may accept something.
Mm-mm.
So I think as a counselor, don't accept anything except the fee. And second thing, I'll say, I will ask that person why you. Okay, I will not receive the watch, but I'm here to listen to you. Why you are saying no to the engineering? Then I'll tell him if I find it good. Then I'll tell him I'll talk to your parents without this thing.
Okay, all right. Sounds good, right? One person is saying, I already have a watch, I don't need it, right? And actually, all of these three answers can be clubbed together. I already have a watch, I don't need it. It's not, I wouldn't want you to bring me such expensive gifts. I don't really need it. And is there a reason why you don't want to go for engineering college? All three answers work, right? All right. Would you give them something? All of you better give me a straight no. Why are you all smiling?
I'll give that person a prayer after counseling session.
A prayer after counseling session, right? All right. Make sure that you are also not giving them anything, right? It would be very different if it's like things that you are doing together. For example, if like your client comes to you and maybe you're using clay work or something, right, to make things together, and you've done it together, but it's something that they've made, so they're going to take it, right? Those things are fine, but you also don't go giving them significant gifts. Like, what if, like, it'll happen, right? Because we're humans. What if somebody has told you that they're into music and they play the guitar, and like you're walking through a guitar store, you see a really nice strap, and like, hey, I think you would really like this. It stops there. It doesn't go to you buying the guitar strap and be like, for you, right? No giving or receiving significant gifts. Yes, Prem.
Ma'am, I have one question. Like, so recently I had this client who ordered like three T-shirts from my brand. So what happened when I like gave that client a T-shirt? So that client called me, wow, this T-shirts are so nice. I want to give you a gift to me. And so I was like that. Then I was thinking, should I receive it or should I not? And I was getting confused in that area. What should I do? So I was just asking you, as a counselor, what is what is your suggestion? Because it's a business thing, and I I gave that person one extra T-shirt out of courtesy because that guy is a good client, and now they are saying me that I also want to gift you something. So as a business owner, or as some something like, should I receive it or not? This was the question.
Did you all understand the question? Understood? Yes, no. No? So, what he said is one of his clients, and I'm assuming this is your counseling client. Are you counseling somebody, Prem?
No, no. Actually, I have a business, so they just ordered T-shirts. So I just gave that person one more for free.
Okay, so it's not a counseling relationship, right?
No, no, no. It's a business relationship, uh, customer and me, between
Oh,
customer and me. Yeah.
oh, then that's up to you, I think. So long as it's not a counseling relationship, which I think we'll get an answer now in dual or overlapping relationships, right? Prem, I think that's up to you because it's not a counseling relationship, right? It's solely a business agreement or like a relationship that you have. If you think it's right for you to receive it, I mean, go ahead. But I don't think this is something that I can actually give you an answer on.
I was just thinking that what if they might ask something else in the future?
Mm.
So that was in my mind. Like, okay, Prem, can you print this? And I like print this for me and do this for me. So I was just thinking in that way. Should I make the distance or should I receive the thing?
I think if we just take that up, I think it may also depend on the nature of relationship that you have. I do know of some people who may have a good business relationship and they might be okay with getting it done because they know that they may not take the other person for granted. But I think there might be a few things that you might just need to think. If you think that taking the gift might cross another boundary somewhere else, then maybe you could use that to decide.
Okay,
Okay.
ma'am. Thank you.
Okay. So the next one is dual or overlapping relationships, right? To the best of your abilities, make sure that the relationship with your client is solely counselor client, right? Not you being the person's auntie or uncle or being some other relationship, or like, what if like you were friends before and then you become friends later on. It's a very strange dynamic. Why do you think so? And overlapping relationships may also come as you end up dating that person, also crossing major boundaries, right? But it happens. That's why we're talking about it. That also looks at becoming friends and physical contact. Why do you think none of these three things work?
I think it will compromise the relationship, the counseling relationship, because now there's an emotional attachment that may not give, that may also compromise our judgment, our listening. Yeah.
All right, that's a really good answer. It'll compromise your judgment. There'll be an emotional attachment and things will get very messy, right? How many of us know that we like, especially when it comes to our own families, right? Especially when you have like siblings around, you try to tell them what to do, they'll not listen. But the same thing being told by the teacher, they listen, right? Because there's that emotional attachment that's there. Like even if you know better, they'll choose not to listen to you, right? Because like, hey, what will he know? What will she know? It's just my brother or my sister. They'll not know, right? But when you're entering a counseling relationship, right? So many times they come to you for emotional support, right? And if those boundaries are not clear, you might become very biased and towards them. Then your judgment also becomes very impaired, right? Like, yeah, it could impair professional judgment. Just for the plot, let's say that your client has come and then you start developing a friendship relationship with this client. What could it look like and what could go wrong? All of you are the counselors here. I'm the counselee. You've been meeting me for 4 to 5 sessions, and and then you're slowly becoming my friend. How do you think that will damage the relationship? I'll come to you, Prem. How do you think that will damage the relationship? Okay, don't even think about me. If you were friends with your professors in college, you bunk a class and you'd be like, just give me attendance now.
Like,
It's fine.
they'll take that counselee and counselor relationship for granted. Like if you have given some time, like 4 to 4:30, they might not even turn up at 4. They might call and say last moment, hey, I'm not coming, or they might take more time. It's like everything will be taken for granted. Anyway, you're my friend now, so you can come and meet me at my home, or I can come and meet you at your home.
Yeah.
So like everything is mixed up now.
Yeah.
uh,
So one important thing that he said is like things will be taken for granted, right? And this is not a taken for granted relationship. It's a professional relationship, right? And like something as small as like the example that he gave. If you were supposed to come at 4, they come at 4:30 and then they push your time, right? But then it'll become hard for you to also say no, because then now they've become your friend. You can't maintain that boundary anymore because why? Now you're worried that okay, what if I hurt this person? Which shouldn't even have come as a thing in the first place, right? Because for you, you remain neutral. In any situation, you're neutral most of the time, right? So to avoid it from becoming messy, no dual relationships as much as you can. It might be different in a church setting, right? Because you might be a pastor, you might be a minister somewhere, and like those people may come to you for counseling, right? So what's important is to establish boundaries in the environment, right? For example, when you're in the counseling room, like yeah, you might be discussing things one on one, but maybe when you meet them in the congregation, you will not discuss the issue there, right? You'll be discussing the problems only when you're inside the room, like when you're meeting them at church, like after you've preached or you've ministered. That's all. Maybe the most would be like you praying for them or if they want something, right? But no discussion of the issues that they have there. Fair enough? Right? Okay. Physical contact, I think that is something that's clear, right? At the most, some people might, like, you shake your hand. That's a very culturally appropriate thing in most places, right? For some, they may not even prefer that. Some things that you wouldn't normally do as a counselor would be to hug them. You'll not kiss them, like, even if their kids choose not to, right? Sometimes for kids, like, they may just be too happy, they may come and hug you. But like it's a very different dynamic if like an older adult comes and hugs you, right? Again, when a difference when different genders come in, right? Sometimes if the person across from you is crying, all you'd want to be like just hug that person and say that it's okay, but like sometimes it's also crossing a boundary, right? It's okay for them to like cry and get themselves back in, like, in order for them to be able to come. But remember that these things also becomes really important. Why? Because they're very vulnerable at that point of time, right? The slightest thing that you can do will affect how they may perceive you, right? So over identification with the counselee's issues, it may look at things like if they're going through something and it's something that you have gone through and now you are in one mind with them, will not really help them in their well-being to move ahead, right? Strong attraction to the counselee's personality, again, it'll be like emotional involvement might make things very messy. Spending time with your counselee outside of work or work area may happen when you start becoming friends and you go hang out, you go to each other's houses. Doesn't work, right? Sharing personal information with the counselee, right? Things that you shouldn't share. Transference and counter-transference, are you clear with what it means? Okay, if you have any doubts with that, just ask me. All right. So before we go to the do's and don'ts, which we will take that up in the next class, any questions with regards to boundaries? Please do ask your questions. I'll just stop sharing it for now. So when we meet again in the next hour, we will complete do's and don'ts. And please, somebody remind me in case if I forget, just to tell you about your assignments of how that would look like. Okay? All right. Thank you, class. I will see you again in the next hour.